Good Morning Melee. Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Deere and I'm your host for the Good Morning Melee show. I know we're not on my couch today, but today's episode is going to take place from here in my office where I do most of my interviews and where I run most of my tournaments. So yeah, I've just been feeling a little bit lazy, but also super busy with everything I'm doing with Gallant and my day job, so I haven't had the chance to properly record an episode this week. So I'm just going to go at it with my webcam. Hope you all don't mind. We'll hopefully get back on the couch soon enough. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a couple really cool things and then ending it off with a really special interview. But again, as I said, every time is a very special interview. But this interview is very relevant. It's with a valuable, immensely valuable member of our community, super cool guy, Brandon, aka HomeMadeWaffles, aka Yung Waff. So we'll end off with a really insightful interview about his come up in the Melee community, his rise as a commentator when he first started getting involved in the scene. So I'm super excited to show that to y'all and get a closer look at who he really is and what a genuine and kick-ass homie he really is. And during the episode before that, I'm going to talk to y'all about events that are going on this coming weekend, or this weekend now, events that are just going on in the community, upcoming events for Melee, but also some of the stuff that's currently going on in our community, some of the important discussions and updates that have happened in the past week or two in the Smash Bros. Community. So I hope you are excited as I am. Let's go ahead and talk about events this weekend. The first event I'm going to be talking about is the Black Empowerment Melee Invitational. So the Black Empowerment Melee Invitational, BEMI for short, is going on all weekend. It actually started on February 4th, this past Thursday, and I'm stoked to be watching it all weekend rather. Started on Thursday, they did volleyball, Among Us. On Friday, yesterday, they played Wolf Tournament, they had pools, and they had some more Among Us. Saturday, today, they've got some tentative content, and then they'll be going into their top 16, followed by some more Among Us, maybe a roundtable discussion. Sunday, they'll end off with the top 8, some more Among Us potentially, a roundtable discussion potentially. But their schedule, leaves a lot of surprises. I'm really excited for what surprises they may have in store. Who knows what they're going to do? Maybe some really cool content. And I know I've really enjoyed watching it so far. The matches have been super fun, and they have a really cool lineup of players. A lot of players who we haven't seen in some time, and even players from other games. Void and Larry Lur are joining from Ultimate. And yeah, the lineup is just full of really cool people and really strong players, and the entire event is primarily being put on by the Black Melee community. So huge props to HomeMadeWaffles and his crew for putting on such a cool and powerful event. They're also fundraising. I believe they have a goal of $10,000 and they're $3,000 in. I'll put in some more details in the description of this video as to how you can donate and support them. But the biggest thing you can do, if you're watching this, go check out HomeMadeWaffles' Twitch channel, the Waffle77, I believe. Drop him a sub, follow him at the very least, tune in this weekend, follow him on Twitter. Let's just support the people who are doing really noble efforts in this community. And the Black Empowerment Melee Invitational is definitely an event that you don't want to miss. I just took a look at the Melee calendar for this weekend, and there are like 12 events happening this weekend. Holy fuck. We have 12 events happening online, open to compete. Some have prizes, some have paid entry, some have free entry, all sorts of different formats from all sorts of different regions. This is fucking insane. We have events in the EU on this calendar. We have events all over North America. And that's just the events that are on the calendar that Kat manages. I'm going to make sure that calendar gets more publicly linked and stuff. It's a super powerful calendar. Ton of events lined up on it. Let's try and make sure we use a centralized calendar like that to keep our community centralized on that front. It's really important that that people know what's going on in the community, know where to find other people to play with and stuff. So having a centralized location like a calendar is huge. So props to Kat for running that. It's really easy to get your event added onto that schedule. There's simply a submission form, and he's really on top of it. So yeah, do check that calendar out. Another really cool place to follow up and find Melee Online tournaments is the Melee Online Discord. I'm a huge fan of what they do. They even have an internal ranking system, so you can find people of similar skill levels, and you can tag various handles that they have, like roles built into their Discord server, to find certain matchups and players in regions you play in. So huge props to them. So those are the two best places to find tournaments if you're looking to enter tournaments right now. But there's tons and tons of tournaments happening every day of the week. We're really blessed. And there's high quality, bigger events that are being created right now. I know a lot of TOs are working behind the scenes, but we have some really cool stuff cooking here at Gallant. So stay tuned this weekend for potentially, I'm out of focus, potentially a very cool announcement.
So an important conversation that I've been seeing a lot of discussion around on Twitter recently is not safe for work art and promotion of not safe for work topics and stuff at tournaments. Specifically, I'm talking about anything related to pornography, lewd imagery, hentai, and that kind of stuff. Artists are one of the backbones of our communities. At big events and tournaments, the artist alley, the vendors, that's such a cool aspect of the event. Some vendors make not safe for work art, and I think there's nothing wrong with them making not safe for work art necessarily. However, having this not safe for work art displayed to children, or just displayed publicly in general, makes people uncomfortable, and it's understandable. Not only does it make people uncomfortable, it's just not okay to have that stuff displayed to children. It's not the environment we're promoting. Children should not be subjected to that kind of stuff, and minors and not safe for work or anything related to that kind of stuff has no overlap. There's no room for it. It's a non-negotiable, okay? So, artists are allowed to continue selling not safe for work art at tournaments. However, they're not permitted to publicly display lewds and nudes and that kind of stuff without it being like an opt-in thing. So you can have a little sign at your vendor alley booth saying you're selling not safe for work content, but what you can do is have like an iPad or a binder behind your stall or whatever, like behind your table, that once you verify somebody is 18 plus, and that's on you as the vendor to do so. Once you verify that they're of age, as an adult in whatever region you live in, by your region's rules, but I think 18 is generally the standard, then you can sell it to them, show it to them, have them browse on your iPad or private device where they can't be showing it, publicly to people who don't want to see that necessarily. And then what you can do from there is, once they purchase it, it's also on the buyer to make sure it's all rolled up, they don't open it up, they also don't display it openly during the event, in the event venue or around the event venue. It's their responsibility to, and all across the board, there should be no tolerance for people not taking this seriously, right? It's your responsibility as a person in this community to make sure it is a safe and comfortable environment for everybody to enjoy, and this is a really big step that it's important for us to recognize is long overdue. It's very long overdue for us to be making these kind of decisions, and it's understandable. In the past, we've just been way too lax on all these topics, to the point where it's caused a lot of people a lot of really traumatic experiences. So it's important for us to identify these things and figure out how we can resolve them, and make sure the situation improves and grow as a community. So yeah, no not safe for work art allowed to be displayed at events, especially to minors. And the content of the not safe for work stuff should also be appropriate. There is no room for the sale of inappropriate, stuff related to minors or those kind of topics in the actual content itself. That stuff has zero place at events, as well as in the community, as well as in our society. That stuff is not okay. So nothing to do with minors and not safe for work stuff. I think that's a pretty clear and simple solution.
So topic like these are really tough, I know, for a lot of people. So sorry that I brought it up so early in the morning, but I'd love to hear feedback or have discussions on these if there's other TOs out there who have better ways of addressing it. What I've just put out is how I'm going to address it. So yeah, I think there's important conversations, so thank you all for listening to that. It is Good Morning Melee, but let's start our day with using our brains towards some really important thought, because it's the way we're going to grow. Alright, I've been talking for far too long now. I hope y'all are still with me here, but I'm going to talk for a bit more. This next conversation, this interview, I actually was really pleasantly surprised. Brandon had a lot of really solid answers and told a lot of really inspiring and really cool to hear stories about his come up in our community. So let's go ahead and jump over to an interview that I recorded the other day with Brandon. This is pre-recorded, so it was a couple days ago, maybe even a week ago, but it's been a busy week. So some of the stuff, we're already in the middle of the Black Empowerment Melee Invitational, but let's go ahead and talk to Brandon and hear more about him. Thanks so much for joining this episode of Good Morning Melee. I'll see you soon. Hopefully continue running these. Next time, hopefully we can make it to my couch. And yeah, as I said, there might be something cool coming up. Oh, I can't even point at it properly, but yeah, check out the phone. Yeah. Good morning, Melee. Thank you so much for joining me for the interview component of today's episode, and I've got a very, very special guest here with me today. I've got the one and only HomeMadeWaffles, aka Yung Waff, aka Brandon. You may know him from videos such as the Wombo Combo or his amazing work with Rollback Rumble, and he's been a veteran of our community for a long time and always doing such inspirational shit, and I'm so glad to have him on here today. Thanks for joining me, Brandon.
Yo, what's going on, man? I'm doing good. I hope everybody listening is doing good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it,
Yeah, man, it's no better way to start the day than like chatting with a homie and like getting to know them a bit better. And hopefully today, the viewers who know your voice or who know some of the stuff you've done might get to know you a little bit better, right? Like, because I think one thing in our community is like we're really close, but you don't really know the person so much as you know the persona.
Yeah.
You feel me on that? Like the
Mm-hmm.
people. Yeah, exactly. There's the personal person and what they're putting out, and a lot of times that does. The really cool thing in our community, I think. I mean, you can correct me on this, but like I think a lot of people match, right? Like the person they're putting out is really them, and so that's why like so far the conversations I've had on this have been like really down to earth, really casual, because the person and the figure that like the person tries to be is really just them. People are really
Mm-hmm.
like themselves in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I'm not sure because I don't know everyone, but at least I'd like to think that we're all consistent. You know what I'm saying? I hope so. I try to be that way with just what you see is what you get. But even with that, uh, people probably still will take things at at a context, I guess, because they only know you, like you said, based off of what they see and how people are maybe on stream or in game. The stuff what you're doing is really cool because you get a perspective that's uh, beyond that point. When the cameras are off, how are people? So I think this is dope. So yeah, it should be cool to give y'all some, I guess, a perspective on who I am. I don't really know, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
For
Just
sure, man.
I don't really know where to start. I just
No worries.
kind
You
of
can.
off the cuff.
We can go. We can go a little bit back. We can go way back, man. Like, so you've been around for the community. Doing really cool stuff behind the scenes, and in front of the scene now, as like on front the other end of the camera for a while now. How long have you been playing Melee, and when did you start playing Melee?
I'd say probably in like mid late 2006. That's a long ass time ago. Yeah, it's 15 almost 15 years. But I didn't really start going to tournaments and like really being out there till like 2008. where I lived at the time, it was just hard to get places, and I was young. I didn't have a car or a license, so uh, I just couldn't really do anything for like the first couple of years. It wasn't until like late 2008 when I really started going to a bunch of tournaments and stuff.
Was that all in
2000.
NorCal?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I live in Northern California. I live in Oakland now, but at the time when I got into Melee, I was living in this town called Modesto, kind of a small town. Not much going on there. It's hard to get to. Like it's in NorCal, but it's not in the Bay Area, so it was hard to travel to the Bay Area. So like that, half the battle was getting there, and
Yeah.
yeah, like
Before you could just sit down and play Melee from home, you actually had to travel to venues and bus to locals and,
yeah,
do all that jazz. People take it
yeah,
for granted, man. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about, how willing people are going to be to like take buses to locals and stuff in the future, but we'll see. But anyways, so you started playing back then. When do you first start getting into like competitive and like going to tournaments then? You're saying 08, 09?
yeah. Well, I went to tournaments then in 2006, but it wasn't like it was only stuff in Modesto. So like I never really left the city. Um, but if they had a tournament, sometimes like we'd have like top players go. Like King went to one of our tournaments, which was a pretty big deal at the time for us because he was like a top 10 player.
Yep.
So or top 15 or something. He was like the best player in Northern California at the time. He went to one of our like little locals, so that was cool. But yeah, it wasn't until 2008 till I like started living in the Bay Area where I like really got to
Like
go
blow
to a
up a little
bunch
bit
of
more.
events
Yeah.
consistently, like just getting to be able to play like good players consistently, and like they all live closer. It was like it's really a blessing. And then, like you said, we didn't have like net play shit. I mean, Uber didn't even exist. So, it was super hard to get anywhere without a car or knowing somebody.
hmm Uh, so you and your YouTube channel are like you preserved so much of the like OG Melee content out there. When did you start doing that? Like, what prompted you to start recording stream setups and getting matches preserved?
Probably like a year in because I always like thought that there were a lot of good players and there was a lot of good sets that would happen that just would kind of be memories,
hmm
and it bothered me. It just was like, yo, why is no one recording this? Like someone should record this. So I would always do that and like try to record and then upload and stuff. And I would my goal was to try to upload as soon as possible. And then like I made a habit of it. And then eventually it just like people would like let me record the bigger tournaments, and it just kind of spirals from there. And then I mean I stopped. Obviously, like now, like my channel, like like in comparison to what is done now, it's like it's trash, right? But like at the time, there wasn't really a platform where you can have someone consistently uploading, and then the fact that I would go to other regions and record for those regions also and upload it helped the channel a lot. And then once I stopped doing it, it was just like a good like it just showed an era. I'd say from like 08, 09 to about 2011 maybe even 2010. That like 3-4 year gap was like it really just embodies like that time period and how it was, that we didn't have much in comparison to what we do now, just with access to things and the ability to even stream. Like back then, it was like you needed, I mean, you still need capture cards and stuff like that, but the length to it was hard because a lot of computers didn't support like gaming software, and you had to use disk for drivers and shit instead of just going on the site and getting it. Like it was different, man. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was
man.
basically like that whole era was just like a embodiment of like just that struggle period we had in Melee, especially because at that time Brawl had just came out. So Melee was like going through this like weird like it was like a down period, but it's like a I don't know if I'm using the word right, like a renaissance or like a rejuvenation or something. I feel like I used that word wrong, but it was like a rebirth in the sense of the scene because we're starting from scratch because we hardly had people, let alone like equipment or any kind of money to back us. Everybody just kind of did it off the strengths from the top players on down. Um, and yeah, I think that like my channel just embodies that moment. You know, those couple years where that existed. So the Dark Ages of Melee, that's what we call it. Even though it was called the Dark Ages, some of the best moments in the history of like the game. So that's why I'm happy about it.
For any of the like people who haven't had the chance to check out some of that stuff, like is there any like video or like moment or memory that you like you're like, damn, like this really captures it, or something they should go check out that like might be still on your channel from those OG times? Because I think a lot of people these days, like the people who are especially coming into our community right now, they like don't even appreciate or acknowledge or like even know that this exists, right? Or like how big of a struggle it was, because I've had to stream off of a Dazzle and Easy Cap and all that stuff, and it's just like it's not
Right.
easy. There's so much that goes into it as well. Like, yeah, any moments or highlights that you can think of?
Probably, I think a classic one is I think most people probably remember this one, Mango Armada Genesis One, right? That's probably like the go-to. I think a lot of good moments was like just you type in any Mango Silent Spectre set. I think that like even though Mango usually won more, the exchange and the back and forth from that, because Silent Spectre would make it close, but like he couldn't, he would like barely lose or something like that. And like I think they're back and forth, like for a little bit, they had a little rivalry, and I think that was really good for the scene at the time, especially when SoCal, NorCal, and then you had someone like Zoo as well. Shouts to Zoo. He would beat everybody in the venue, and then like, but he'd have this like such a hard matchup versus Mango, where like he couldn't beat Mango, but like anybody else that was near him, he would just kind of destroy him. And I think like seeing all those players' journeys, the rise of Shroomed, like that a lot of his rise happened on that channel. The rise of SFAT, just PewFat in general, like a lot of that happened on this channel too. We got some of SFAT's like first big wins. Uh, the rise of Lovage, return of Hugs that happened. When he was playing Brawl and he came back to Melee. It was a lot of cool moments, man, and I'm definitely blessed that I got to be able to just capture like some great players' moments. Definitely fortunate in that regard.
No doubt, man, and it's so precious to have those. So yeah, huge shouts to that again. At some point during this, I guess you also just decided, like, you had your stream setup going and you started commentating. I'm guessing after you were out of your bracket, you just started basically like watching the sets from your stream setup and also just happened to start recording it. Like, how did commentary start to become a thing? Because you were kind of like one of the first commentators in Melee then, with that regard, right?
Yeah, I'll always say like because most players I think they choose commentary. I truly believe commentary chose me. So
Mm-hmm.
why I was even commentating in the first place? I was trying to get people to do it, but no one wanted to do it because they thought it was weird.
Yeah.
So nobody fucked with it. Can I curse on this thing?
Yeah,
Oh
go
no.
for it, dude. Yeah.
Okay, okay. No, like nobody fucked with the idea. So I'm just like, dude, like I don't know how to like explain to people like what this is. And so I just did it because I'm like, well, no one else is doing it. Like, fuck, I might as well. I'm already at the computer anyway. I'll
Yeah.
just do it. And then Phil was just off the streets, really just being a good friend. Shouts to Phil and just like doing it with me. And then that's kind of how that happened. Seriously, it was only. I think if someone wanted to do it, it'd been a totally different thing. I always wanted to not be noticed. I think. I think a misconception about me is this idea that because you see like how hype we used to get back in the day, or the Wombo combo, or just us, just we would talk trash to each other. That there's this idea that I'm just this like super vocal always like enthused type of dude, and I'm really not. I'm like super reserved, low key. I usually don't like attention. But like I don't know, it just like happened, you know what I'm saying? And it was just like a thing that stuck and people liked it. So I was like, well, at first they didn't. They actually hated it. And I think because, you know, how we used to talk on the mic, I think people didn't like it. They thought it was unprofessional, all this other stuff. And, you know, it made me not want to do it for a bit because it was just like, bro, like, I don't, like, we don't have to do this shit. Like, we only did it because, like, no one would really do it, right? But then after a while, I don't know, people really start gaining a liking towards it. And especially when like it was one of those things like you don't really notice it until it's gone type of thing. I think once it stopped, people really wanted us to keep going, you know, because there was a phase where we kind of both stopped commentating. Uh, I'm talking before like the present time. And yeah, like from there, I think the more people watched it, the more they got into it, and that like it like became a demand. And since I was always the guy recording, I would always be the one just commentating off by proximity. So it was just easier to do it that way. But that's kind of how it fell into play, man. I mean, there other than that, there wasn't really. It was never planned. It was never my intention. It just kind of happened.
Then, like, when did you becoming more of a professional commentator, or like, what do you think was your real come up then into being on the more like pro side of things? Then, like, was it that some esports org started like organize an event and they're like, hey, like we saw your videos and we think you're a great commentator, like, do you want to commentate our tournament? Or like, what do you think was your progression then into like where you stand now as a commentator in the community?
Probably. Well, since we commentated Genesis back then, I think that helped, right? And that's more of a just like a friendship with the TOs. Like, you know, we all kind of grew up together, so that's kind of how that stayed in place. And then like it's kind of like we all grew at the same time. I think Genesis, like, you know, with Bob Charity, just everybody in that group, we all kind of grew up together and we all kind of entered this sphere together. So I think like that was just proximity. Like the same reason why like I've been able to commentate big events is also like the same reason why I think Genesis just became a bigger event. Like people realized the demand and we kind of started to adapt and acclimate towards like the change that's not just going on in Smash, but just in the world, really. You know. But yeah, I mean that, and I think also Summit, because I think before then, I mean we commentated and they've had us come out to events and stuff like that. You know, I commentated some Apex, I think, or it was one of those tournaments. I forgot. Pound, but I think Summit was the first time where it was like she usually was just like, oh, we'll fly you out and that's it, and you're basically you figure out everything else on your own. And even back then that was cool because it's like, oh, you know, we get to go to the East Coast. Like, you know, I'm from the West Coast, obviously, so I like going to New York and stuff was crazy. But I think I'd say Summit because that's the one where they were like, yo, we're down to pay you guys to do this, and like to us that shit was just like not, for at least for me, I can't speak for everybody else. I didn't feel like we should get paid. In my head, I was thinking, yo, they're paying us for this. This is fucking crazy. Like, what, you can make money doing this? This is wild. And like, that's kind of where that started. And I think people just saw maybe me commentate that one event, and then you know, just asked me from there. I also think too, a lot of TOs are just like I think a lot of people don't like, they think that most TOs are like organizations and companies, but a lot of it is just their other smashers, bro. Like you could attest to this. Like I think most TOs that wanted us on were just, they also just were fans of the game, supporters of the game as a whole, and we all kind of used each other to help each other, I think, in that aspect.
For sure, man. Like I looked back at our original DMs from like 2015 the other day, like from Ballad BC1, and like, yeah, I mean, I guess I can speak from the TO side of it as well, right? Like I was
Yeah.
planning an event. I thought of who the coolest commentators who I like to listen to the most were, hit you up on Twitter, and I mean, we went from there. It really is, yeah, it's a really good perspective to put into play there. Like, there's not some like black hole corporation that is just like running events. It's always just like people, and I think the majority of the time, it is just like some other cool smasher. So that makes sense, man. I guess that really is like grassroots, right? It really is
Yeah,
that we are grassroots, and I think we still largely are, is what we're seeing as well with this whole like free melee movement. I think we really embraced grassroots, and we're just doubling down on grassroots, right? Like
yeah, for
events
sure.
like Rollback Rumble, GMO, like the stuff Ludwig's running, right? Like it is just
Hmm.
by like people who love the game and love the community. Um, so this whole time, you were commentating, you were streaming stuff, but you were also playing, right? Like you were also really fucking good at melee, right? Like so,
Thanks.
so what's the player side, and how have you balanced like the player side and wanting to compete, and like if you go out to a tournament, right? You're gonna set up their stream, you're gonna commentate their stream, but you're also gonna compete in the tournament probably. How'd that all work out for you? And like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that side of like how you
Um,
balanced it?
I never really like in the past. I never really thought about it because it wasn't organized. So there wasn't like commentary blocks and set times and schedules. It was kind of just like, yo, whoever is available is available. And basically I hop on the mic when I was available. And when I wouldn't hop on the mic. Now, now it's different because
Yeah.
it's like, you're gonna commentate from 4 to 6, right? So in those 2 hours that you're going to be commentating. And so that's a little bit harder to juggle sometimes because uh I always do bad at Genesis. I feel like because like it's always like a tournament. Despite me living the biggest advantage is that I live there, but what sucks is throughout the tournament, I'm helping them set up TVs and stuff in the venue. Then I go hop on commentary, and
Mhm.
then I gotta play pools. And I haven't played pools all day, and I've been like up lifting TVs and talking all day, and then I just get bodied, right? Like
Yep.
that it got a lot harder for me to juggle as I've like throughout the years because like players have just gotten better.
Mhm.
Um, I'm getting older. I mean, it's just harder to like fluctuate sometimes. I can still do it, but it's super hard when they have you scheduled like they'll schedule you for commentary and then they'll have your pool right after.
Mhm.
That one's like brutal, bro, because you've been chilling watching melee, and a lot of times those most backstages are really cold. Go back there, you try to play melee, and that's just rough. But I mean, I've always tried to do what I can. I've also had to do those same blocks, and I've done well. Uh, I think it varies on my practice regimen sometimes, and there was times where I would like play and then stop playing for like deliberately, like stop
Mhm.
playing for a couple hours, and then like come back to it and play a try hard set because I think a lot of times I would get put in that situation
Mhm.
where I would just like, have to play some of my best melee without warm up. So I try to like practice that. Um,
Oh, so you
and it
intentionally
helped.
practice that like circumstance. That's really cool.
Yeah, I did that a lot in like 20. When was Big House 7?
Ooh.
Whenever that tournament
Yeah.
was, I did good at that tournament. And I like deliberately practice because I knew like that would happen to me a lot.
Mhm.
And I was able to like juggle it. And I was like proud of that. You can do both. It just, for me, everyone's different. Unfortunately, I'm not like ridiculously talented with it where I gotta just like, I could just do it on the drop of a dime and
Mhm.
hop in the game. I have to like really practice that aspect of melee for me to be able to do both. But I mean, I'm fortunate. I've had like some good wins, beating some good players throughout the years,
Yep.
top 100 a bunch of times. So even with that in mind, I'm still thankful considering that I feel like I'm one of the few players. I hate saying this because it just fucking sounds like I'm just like feeling myself. Uh, I just feel like I'm one of the few players who's done a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
So I'm proud that I'm able to like not only TO commentate, help with venue stuff, but then like be able to like crack a top 32 or top 64 or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Dude, I think that's super cool, and I don't think you're like flexing by any means. I think that's just genuinely a really, really cool achievement. Like on top of to have such a diverse skill set, to be like basically a triple threat, quadruple threat, like if you actually count that you also ran streams and everything, is huge, man. And yeah, also to have done it for such an extended period of time and like maintained it, because as you said, like the game has advanced, players have advanced, everything's advanced, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you've maintained like that you're still like someone who's capable is dope. And yeah, I guess more recently I've come to see you in the TO role that you were just talking about. I'm not sure did you TO stuff prior to like what you're doing now with Rollback Rumble and stuff? Like did you
Uh,
do locals?
the first tournaments I ever really started TOing, where it was called is that tournament, because we used to we named it that because uh everybody would always walk up. I'm sure you've been, every smasher that's been to a tournament has been in this position. You're watching a high profile set,
Mhm.
and someone comes up to you, taps you on the shoulder, and is like, "Is this tournament or is that tournament?" Right?
Yeah.
And so we named the tournament that, because that question always got asked, because
Yeah.
we would have a bunch of dope sets, right?
Yeah.
And shout out to Julian, because he was the one who found the venue, and like we would TO it together.
Like Zoo or
Julian Tar Heel JKS, he helps TO Genesis.
oh nice.
So we kind of did that together, and that was my glimpse of it. He did a lot of the stuff, but I also did like I helped with like seating and stuff. He found the venue, and then I would help with like getting TVs and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And that was like my first glimpse of it.
When was that?
This was in like 2011,
Okay.
2012. And then when I really started TOing was Melee at the Maid.
Mhm.
Shouts to the Maid. I'm trying to do like a charity thing for them eventually, because the COVID, like they lost their building due to COVID. But basically, the Maid it's like stands for like the Museum of what's it like? It's like an arcade game, like a
Mhm.
retro gaming museum essentially. And so every Friday they let us host tournaments there for Melee, and
Mhm.
I did that for about like 2-3 years straight, and that helped me a lot going online. But I did that probably from, I'd say, like 2017 till whenever COVID started.
Right.
So yeah, like I was doing that for about 2 or 3 years, and we were gaining a lot of traction with the series, and it helped me a lot, like on what to be, like what to do and how to do things. And I think like what you said, like with the things that I'm like versed in, like with the
Yep.
commentary and the playing, I think it really helped me understand like how tournaments work, because you know I can see it from a perspective of someone who doesn't place high, and then
Mhm.
I can see it from a perspective from someone who like wins the event, right? So because I'm like versed in these aspects, I'm like, okay, I know these guys, they want best of five,
Mhm.
or most smashers want the tournament to start at this time.
Right.
And so how can I make that to where I can start at this time but still end in a reasonable fashion?
Mhm.
And so I would get like really brainstorm those type of things, and I like to think that those things help me in that regard with TOing, because like I try to really value like finishing on time for
Mhm.
my events. Obviously, it's like
Uh,
sometimes it's like you just get chalked and there's nothing you could do. But uh, I try to make it as best as possible to make the event run efficient, and to make it to where there's not too many pauses, and where people can play as much Melee as they can.
yep.
Um, and yeah, that's basically my TO thing. Also, I did the Wombo Combo 10-year anniversary.
Yep.
That was like my first like real big tournament, like in person,
Mhm.
that I hosted. So I had a cool idea with that, but that I did there. But I'll save that for, I don't want to be long winded. But basically, yeah, that's pretty much where the TO started. And like the TO, like why I started TOing was because just kind of for the same reason with like videos. Like there weren't any tournaments where I lived, right? Like most of the tournaments were in San Jose, San Francisco. I live in Oakland, right? And
Mhm.
to go to San Francisco is probably like 30 minutes, with traffic. San Jose is like a good hour without traffic. With traffic, it's just even more crazy. So
Yep.
I wanted to have something that we can go to where people in the area can, like, play and practice. And even if you come from out of town, everyone's welcome. So, you know.
Yeah, having a consistent and good local like is essential to the scene. So like, I actually didn't know that that was something you were hosting with Melee at the Made. So that's super cool. When did you decide to transition to doing Rollback Rumble and doing online stuff then? Like when Rona hit, were you still kind of fired up as a TO because you were running Made and you had run your big tournament, so you were already in like this mode of like, I love running events. I see an opportunity here and I want to run a really big event, or like how did how did you take this shift? Because I think in the past year I've seen you jump more into the TO role than I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it could be different from your perspective. Like more as a TO than ever before, and doing like bigger and bigger stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
I've been in TO for a while. I
mhm,
just think it's getting acknowledged now
mhm,
because it's like online, right? But I think if you ask someone in NorCal specifically, they would tell you, yeah, like Brandon's been hosting Made for like mad long.
yep,
I think originally what happened, the tournaments were just the Made online because I didn't want to stop the Made because we weren't there. And what made me change the name was because I was like, well, we're not at the Made. This isn't technically even ran by the Made. So why am I calling it the Made online? We're not at the Made, right?
yep,
So I changed the name because I didn't know what was going to happen with the Made. I didn't know if like they were going to still be in business, if they were moving venues. I had no idea. So I just didn't want to. It's not that like they did anything wrong. I just didn't know what was going to happen with them. So I didn't want to keep the name, especially if nobody on their staff was involved.
yep,
It was no point to me to keep the name. And I wasn't a staff member, even though I TO'd and did a lot of stuff there.
mhm,
Um, so I changed it to Rona Rumble at the time. That was
yeah,
when COVID was still called coronavirus and everybody was calling it coronavirus, right? And we kind of
Rona,
went,
yeah,
yeah. So everybody we kind of didn't know what it was at that time. We
mhm,
just knew everything was getting shut down. And it was just like, we didn't really know what to expect from it. Uh, and then I changed the name to Rollback Rumble because of that, like, same reason, like having the name Rona and
yeah,
people have lost loved ones and stuff like that. I didn't really think about it when I did the name at the time, but I also didn't expect what would happen to the events to happen
mhm,
and like for it to spiral and just become like this thing in the community. Uh, so I think that's kind of how I ended up, like where I ended up. I guess originally we changed the name, and then the West Coast events were getting real traction.
mhm,
And then in my head, I was thinking like, "Yo, why don't we do this for the East? The East has a lot of players." And then so we did that. But then there would be other regions like Southeast, like Florida and stuff like that, like the Midwest, who they also, because this was still delay
yep,
and everybody wouldn't have good connections with everyone. So I think why it got so much traction was because I was doing so many tournaments for so many different regions and then doing them all weekly.
mhm,
So every week someone had a tournament they could compete in. And I think that's why it got so much traction. A lot of top players entered. I think I say, don't test me. Like
mhm,
that's where that whole thing blew up.
yep,
South to Zane, like just and even now just watching all the other players' progressions. I mean, obviously there's other tournaments. Shout outs to was it East Coast
mhm,
Fridays, uh was it, is it training mode
yep,
Tuesdays, the thing that they got, the ladder, the
yep,
polarity tournaments. There's a lot of good tournaments out there right now. So I don't want to take credit for all that. Trey's tournament, shouts to Trey. But I think our tournament just like made it, for whatever reason, like I think the pot bonuses help too.
mhm,
Just shouts to Zope and Mad Dazev. It just put a lot of spotlight on the events and the fact that they were happening weekly when everybody was still trying to pick up the pieces on what to do with tournaments.
right.
It helped us out a lot. Helped me out a lot too.
Yeah, they were consistent, they were solid, they were well run, like that everything good going for them. So that's huge. And I mean, I guess that all came from your team and the folks put it on. So like mad props. And I guess it also gave the people who had previously been streaming events or like top players, it gave them something to stream and something to do. So you did have a lot of viewership on their streams in a way for people to like keep up with their favorite players by watching Rollback Rumble. at a time where there weren't as many net play tournaments and stuff going on, which is huge. And it really, like, I think your team, like from what I can tell, like from the people I've worked with on your team, they like figured out how to run these really well and create these really good experiences and optimize them and whatnot, right?
Right.
And
I mean,
go ahead.
I'll go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say shouts to Jade
Yeah.
because we were doing this offline before, like Jade. They helped me with the Wombo Combo tournament and what was the other tournament? We used to do this thing called the Made Remix where we'd fly out players. So one of the tournaments we flew out Magi and Fat Goku. And the goal, COVID kind of ruined this, but the goal was to every couple of months to fly out top players to our region and try to see, just how they stack up against the competition. And also bring people from other regions because once one player comes along, then everybody from every other region wants to they're
Test the
like, yo,
waters.
I want to see how I do too, right? And so we got used to doing it from there. And I think online it just made it easier for us because it was like we don't have to drive everywhere, get a bunch of TVs and chairs and do all this labor because that essentially that's what it was. I saw Jade, they had a TV on Bart, like hanging off this, like, I don't even know what the fuck Jade had. It was some weird like pouch, and they were just carrying it. And I'm like, bro, like that's
Damn.
wild. Like, so like, we were just doing that for like a while. And I think the transition to online, it was a little weird at first, but over time it just became real simple. And then shout out to Shiggles. Shiggles, he does all the the artwork and the graphics and the layouts. And he was always doing that. He would send me stuff here and there, but then like I swear Shiggles gets better like every 2 hours, yo. Like he just like the layouts became more and more crazy. And he's like, I don't know how to do this yet, but I'll figure it out. And then like he learns it like the next day. It's crazy. And like having him on board, and then Walk, shout outs to Deathstorm, he uploads the VODs onto YouTube. And he always went to Maids regularly, so me and him, we're just homies in general, just on some regular shit. So it just all transitioned well. And everybody's just like, nobody's really in it for a come up or for money. Although that's not to say that these people shouldn't get paid, right? I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
It's just like the premise behind their goals. It just like we all kind of align together. Like our goal is just to make this event dope for everybody involved. I think we like the best thing for us is just that everyone feels comfortable being in the event. They feel happy being in the event. Obviously, we've had hiccups. It hasn't always been perfect, but it's just really dope that we were able to. I do really think that having what we're doing, the fact that we were experiencing this offline, especially me and Jade, helped a lot when online became a thing. Especially when Rollback came out, because that kind of changed how we did tournaments too a lot. Yeah.
It basically upscaled them, right? Like it made them so much bigger in scale, right? In terms of like
Right.
what you got going on, because now you do have cross country level competition. Well, not cross country right now, I guess, but yeah, we do have like such a bigger player base when you're doing rollback as opposed to these smaller delay based regions. Super cool,
Right.
man. So I know you just recently the other night announced something huge. Your really big upcoming event, the I don't want to botch it again.
No,
The
you're
Black
good.
Empowerment Melee Invitational, which is such a fucking cool idea, and I'd love if you like talk to me some more about that so people can know what's going down with that.
Oh yeah. So basically, it's like kind of like a summit style event, invitational where everybody, all the players are like Black, African American. Same with the casters and whatnot. Obviously, there are people helping that are of different backgrounds, but primarily the focus is on,
Empowering.
I guess it's Black Excellence, Black History Month. I am Black, so that's kind of why I value it the way I value it. I was nervous. I'm not gonna lie. even though I did think the idea was cool, I was just like, I know how it is in America.
Mhm.
And I know how, especially when Black people, you step outside of that realm of like what's comfortable to people who may not understand. Uh, that shit is intimidating
No
sometimes.
doubt.
So I was kind of nervous, and we got some heat for it, but
Mhm.
I mean, that's kind of expected, But I do think, this is a good thing, and every player involved that I've messaged is like really like happy about the event and the idea. There's a lot of people who don't even play Melee anymore who are coming back for this,
Mhm.
and it's just an idea because not only just to just embrace what we've done as like people, but like just to bring all these people from like you know together.
Mhm.
Because yes, the common factor in this event in particular is that everybody is Black, but we aren't all from like it's Black people from the East Coast versus being Black in New York versus being Black in Texas.
Mhm.
Um, like how different that can be, and also just being Black in an esport.
Mhm.
That, let's be real, it's not like in esports in general. There's just not that many Black people. I mean, maybe the FGC is the closest, probably the most I've seen.
Mhm.
But in general, if I watch a game of League or
Yeah.
whatever, you're not, that's it's just a foreign
You're
concept.
not
So
seeing familiar faces. Yeah.
right, and don't get me wrong. I think diversity is a good thing. I
Mhm.
think seeing people that are different from you is a great thing too, because you get to learn about things outside of your perspective.
Mhm.
But I think with a lot of people involved, we've been in situations that are outside our perspective for so long
Mhm.
that, at least when it comes to gaming, right?
Mhm.
That it's like almost like a fairy tale on what would it look like, you
Mhm.
know?
I
And
feel
that's
you.
kind of what I was thinking with the event. Like, what would that look like? How would that come off to the players, especially, or to the people involved? I already know some people are gonna not be about it. Um, People think it's what like I've heard the terms divisive and whatnot, and I guess can counter that with like that. That would probably, the fact that you think it's divisive is probably why it should happen, because you like you never see like this type of thing
Mhm.
for us, like especially with what's been going on
Yeah.
with Black people in America. I think just I mean, people will try to, everybody will have their certain arguments, but I just think that like it should happen considering that we've just never had those type of moments. I feel like every Black player is going to a tournament with the only Black person numerous times, no matter how good you are at the game, doesn't matter. Like, it's just we've all had those moments. I think, you know, shouldn't always have to be another reason. A big reason why I also wanted to do this event was I feel like when these type of events happen, like you'll see like a Black Lives Matter event. Shout out to Nico for doing that, or
Mhm.
just any type of event like that. It's always based off some form of tragedy.
Mhm.
Some Black dude gets shot. We all feel bad, so we want to host a tournament.
Mhm.
And I didn't want it. I didn't want that to be the basis of this event. That's why the word empowerment's in there. I didn't want us to have to feel bad and then we all do something and donate to a charity because something happened. And I also think that if more events like this happen, you would probably see more Black players just in general at
Mhm.
events. Just because they know, like, okay, yeah, there's different people here and that's good for me, but it also it's cool to see someone who's, you know, just like one familiar face,
Yeah.
And
More relatable.
right. And don't get me wrong, I think every group has probably had that plight to an extent, especially like every minority, especially. But I think when it comes to games, at least, it's like it's just different.
Yep.
I think it's a lot like our situation. It's just like Black people, especially in America, is it's a really unique one, and I just wanted to embrace that, especially because Black History Month's happening.
Mhm.
But shout outs to everybody who's supportive of it. I definitely appreciate it. Um, if you don't like it, it's not a means to insult you. It actually has nothing to do with you. You know,
That
yeah,
I think that's a really
yeah,
big point. Like, it really
yeah.
doesn't, like, if you're like mad about this or like this, then this is just like, yeah, it's not for you. It's not targeting you. It's not against you. Like, I think that's a good point.
It's more just embracing uh, uh, like moments of greatness just for black people, and it's based off just uh good emotion to begin with. Like I said, I really didn't want tragedy to spawn this event
Mhm.
because no one says that when we have an event and someone died for the cause. I just get tired of seeing that within black community. You know what I'm saying? So that was like one of the biggest reasons, and just to see what it would look like. I feel like that's never happened before.
I'm really proud of you, man, for putting on this event. It seems
Oh,
like
thanks.
it's going to be an amazing event, first off, with the competition, commentary, and whatnot. But it's a really cool concept, and it comes from, like, even just like listening to hear, it comes from a really, really important and good place. So I'm really excited for that event and to tune into it. If you want to remind us when it is, I'll definitely get a post
Oh
right there
yeah,
for it and whatnot.
it's at February. It's on February 4th through the 7th, so that's a Thursday. First week of February. So that first weekend, I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure to be exact. Yeah, it's the first week of February.
Sweet,
So
4th to 7th. Yep.
that Thursday to Sunday. An exact schedule, I'm working on it. But eventually I'll put it out and what's going down and a list of everybody. I just got a list of all the players today. It's gonna be 32 players,
Wow.
and it should be exciting, man. Again, to anybody who supports the event, I really appreciate it, especially in this time. I really appreciate just everybody who held me down with encouraging words and stuff, including you. Thank you.
No, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You're doing so much. Wow, I actually learned a ton about you from just this conversation, man. And I really appreciate it. And I think we are coming towards a close on this interview. We went a little bit
Sure.
longer because I just really enjoyed hearing about some of these topics.
Right.
Um, I'll jump into like our last question of the night that I've been asking everyone at this point, and it's kind of just stuck, but different tone. What are 3 words that you'd use to describe Melee?
Um. Hmm. It's kind of weird what I'm gonna pick. I guess I'm gonna pick life, long, lasting.
Nice. Dude, this game
Yeah,
never dies. This game
yeah,
never dies.
yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it like so close
Oh,
to
I'd
dead.
love to. I'll put love in there too as a fourth one. But those words,
Glad
all
to
I
hear it,
mean,
man.
embodies it. But thank you again, man, for having me on, and everybody listening, just taking your time out to listen to me. I really appreciate it. Y'all should follow Good Morning Melee. It's a dope shit. I just saw you drop the SFAT episode recently, right?
Yeah, so I talked to SFAT last week, and yeah, I'm doing this on a weekly basis now. I mean, I don't know if you know, the started during 5 days of Melee. Kind of
Yeah, yeah.
just like they needed something to start the days, and I had an idea for it, and I kind of just like ran with it. And then
Mhm.
I really enjoyed doing the interviews and getting to talk to people. Talk to a lot of really cool people that week. PPMD, The Cheat, Toph, and whatnot.
Yo, let's
And
go.
just continued going with it. And yeah, here we are doing this weekly on Gallant Gaming. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna
So
be yeah.
yeah, and shout outs to all the morning gamers because there's not a lot of you.
Yeah,
So
I think we had
I
like 70 live viewers last time. I mean, I don't think too many people are tuning in, but yeah, hoping some people can just like start watching this on their like. I guess they don't have morning commutes anymore, but you're just working from home, chilling, play this in the
right.
background,
Yeah, I love a
listen.
good podcast, man. It's always good to vibe to, you know.
Exactly. All right, I'm gonna wrap up the episode now. Thank you everybody for watching. Really hope you enjoyed and you got to learn. Go ahead and drop Homemade Waffles here a follow at Yung Waff if you don't already. Check out the Black Empowerment Melee Invitational coming up on February 4th to 7th. And thank you for tuning in to the Good Morning